Hello, I'm Ann Del Castillo, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2021 Industry Forum at the New York International Children's Film Festival. We at the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment are proud to be a founding partner of this important event. Our agency is charged with supporting New York City's creative economy: film, television, theater, music, advertising, publishing, digital content, and nightlife. Our Office of Film, Theater, and Broadcasting provides support for on-location filming throughout New York City. NYC Media operates the largest municipal broadcast television and radio network in the country. And our Office of Nightlife works to support a thriving nighttime industry which has given birth to so many of our most influential cultural movements. Through our programs and initiatives, we support industry and workforce development in order to ensure access and opportunities for a diverse talent pool. Together, these sectors represent over $150 billion in economic output annually and over 500,000 jobs for New Yorkers. But more than that, they define New York City as a global creative capital. As someone who started at Sesame Street, children's programming is particularly important to me. But also, as an only child of a single immigrant mother, I experienced the power of children's media. My mother likes to joke that Sesame Street was my babysitter, but really what was important was that I saw my experience as an urban American of immigrant heritage reflected in programs like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, and Electric Company. So I thank the New York International Children's Film Festival for their vision and commitment in presenting this forum. And I thank all of you for being here and engaging in these important conversations. So with that, I now turn it over so that you can begin our program.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maria Cristina Villaseñor. I'm the programming director of the New York International Children's Film Festival. I'm so excited to have you all here and to have our amazing panelists and moderator join us for this very first Industry Forum panel toward an inclusive future and tonight's program, Behind the Curtain. As part of our nonprofit mission at NYICFF, we champion intelligent film for young audiences as a path toward mutual understanding, a way to grasp the world beyond their own experience, and an opportunity to reflect on their own developing identities. And through film, kids can experience the magic and power of art and storytelling, diverse storytelling, something that should be readily accessible to all. So to ensure this, in February of 2020, NYICFF made the very important decision to start to focus on not only on audiences, but also on makers, and to ensure that creatives, industry leaders, and filmmakers had an opportunity to join with us and discuss how we could actively and collaboratively create a more diverse, inclusive media culture for kids. And we were blown away by the results. Inspired conversations, brilliant ideas, hilarious and moving stories, and amazing initiatives. And so we realized we have to keep doing this every year, sharing such great voices and great ideas, and actively paving the way for new generations from all backgrounds to enter that field and expand our world through film. So here we are, kicking off year 2, and so grateful to our participants, to you, our audiences, and to all that make NYICFF's nonprofit mission possible. And a special thank you to our founding partner for their support on the forum, the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. Special thank you to Anne, whom you just heard from, and to Unifrance for their support of the full Industry Forum series. The panels are taking place from this Thursday through the next on through the next 4, so ending on May 27th. So that's 5 panels in full. So be sure to join us for all of them. They're all diverse in terms of subject matter participants, and really exciting. Next week's Owning Your Story is going to be really great as well. So please, if you can, sign up for them all. We'd love to have you here. And we also want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to connect and participate throughout today's conversation and going forward. So you can drop your comments, as you already have, in the chat. And so great to have you all introducing yourselves and saying hello, but feel free to comment and share throughout. And also our moderator is going to prompt you once we're ready to start taking questions through the Q&A function for our fabulous panelists. And we're also going to be sharing a sheet that invites you all, if you want to share your information, you know, share your contacts, share your portfolios, a little bit about who you are, what you're interested in, what you're aiming for. It's a publicly shared document, so just be aware of that before you add anything to it. But we really want to foster connection and community. So we're excited to offer all of these means to make your voices heard, and we will definitely be paying attention and being mindful in terms of continuing these conversations and doing what we can do. All right, so now it is my great pleasure to introduce our moderator, Emerald Wright-Collie, and welcome the panelists. Emerald is an amazing creative manager and producer at Silvergate Media, who currently works on the award-winning Netflix show Hilda. And we at NYICFF also have the great privilege of having Emerald collaborate with us as a programming committee member and a consultant on the industry forum. Emerald, it is a pleasure, and I turn the floor over to you for this wonderful discussion.
Hello, thank you so much, Maria Christina. Hi, everybody. Hello. I'd like to welcome everyone to this virtual space, and thank you for joining us today at NYICFF's panel, Behind the Curtain, Making Career Pathways Transparent. As Maria Christina mentioned, my name is Emerald Wright-Collie, and I work at Silvergate Media as the Manager of Development and Producer on the Netflix series Hilda, and I will be your moderator. Today, we plan to have a candid conversation about the roadmap to a career in media. So let's introduce our panelists. They're all amazing and wonderful, and they come from all different areas of animation. I'd first like to introduce Monica Lago-Kaytis, a producer and co-founder of Rise Up Animation.
Hi.
Hi, Monica.
Yeah, relax, ladies.
Hello. Next up is Halcyon Person, head writer at 9 Story Media Group. Hello, welcome, Halcyon.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, Ellen Sue, recruiter at Titmouse Studio and co-lead at Women in Animation.
Hi, thank you for having me as well.
Hello, Ellen. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you all today. So I'd like to take a second to ground ourselves in this space and the conversation we'll be having today. Each and every one of our panelists have truly blazed a path in media, and let's be honest, everybody, and looking back, you realize that the road to your career has peaks and valleys, but also you look at the person next to you, whether it be your coworker, your boss, whomever, and realize that their pathway to their career looks completely different. So we're here today to have that conversation, and by the end, hopefully shed some light, provide some insight or inspiration on mapping a career into the media industry. Animation is one of those industries where it isn't so obvious what people do in their day-to-day. It's not like Career Day where it's like a firefighter, we fight fires. But the beautiful thing about working in media is that there are a bunch of different jobs you can have, and really the possibilities are endless. And we have a wonderful opportunity today to talk a little about everyone's role and what exactly it is that they do. Monica, let's start things off with you. Tell us a little about your impressive career path in animation and why you recently founded Rise Up Animation.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you for doing this. This is amazing. You know, you're right. Everybody has a very different path, and I was a kind of a big geek. As a kid, I loved cartoons. And at the time there wasn't cable, so you watched whatever TV channel had them on all day. So Saturdays were really the day for all day watching of cartoons and eating your cereal. And then Sunday was like, oh, Sunday they just had like Davy and Goliath. It was a religious show, but it was stop motion, so I'd watch it as well. even though I wasn't really raised in a religious family. But it was interesting because I knew I loved it, but I never knew that you could have a career in it. So I think that's why it's so important that you bring this up and ask us about it, because you're right. Nobody really knows. It's almost like I thought they were making these things out in outer space and like just beaming them down to us. So my mother is an artist, and she was going to art school after I was born. And so she would take me to art school with her. So I definitely had the arts background, and my dad was a businessman, but they didn't stay married, unfortunately, because my mother's an immigrant. So she's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. So I'm Hispanic and Latina on one side and Jewish on the other. My dad's Ashkenazi Jew descent, like Austrian. And so, we didn't have like the institutional wealth that a lot of people have here. So it was kind of like, I watched my mom struggling financially being an artist and being an art teacher. My dad was like, they all came into New York. That's all all my people came into New York and came to LA after. So all of them kind of have a little bit of that New York kind of like wise guy thing. My dad was like, look at your mother. You don't want to be like that. So he was like, take some business classes. So, I was going to school and I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I was pretty lucky because I was taking business courses. And my mother actually remarried when I was 18. She married this amazing artist. And he was one of her students in college later on in life. And she helped him put together his portfolio. And so with that portfolio, he got actually hired at Disney feature animation. And his first movie was The Little Mermaid, which I believe is one of Emerald's favorite movies. So I was like, wait, what? You can get a job in this industry? Like I was working at Bank of America. Like, what did I know, And, but from a very young age, because my mother is an artist who's quite eccentric, I was always paying the bills and doing the taxes before I was even 10 years old. So, and producing all of her one-woman shows. And so I think my stepdad really saw that I could be a producer one day, and my mom as well. And so he said, they have these production people, and I don't know what they do exactly, but I think you'd be good at it. And so that's really how I kind of stumbled into animation. It took me a long time. Just because someone doesn't guarantee you a job. So it took 4 months of tons of interviews, and I was probably last on the list because I didn't go to any of the big colleges. I went to Cal State LA and East LA, but I was scrappy and smart, and they did hire me on Pocahontas. That was my first film. And I was at Disney for 23 years. Worked my way up from PA all the way to associate producer, which is second command on a film. So I was the producer, or line producer is what a lot of people know it as in live action, for Zootopia and Wreck-It Ralph. I also did Princess and the Frog, which I'm most proud of that film. I was the production manager on that, of course, because it was our first Black princess, and I was very vested in that. And then, I didn't really see people who looked like me. There weren't a lot of female producers. The ones that were there were always kind of getting removed from shows, and men were coming in, and it was a very strange time, and everybody was either white or passing as white. And I say that not to be a jerk about it, but like when my mother came to this country, she couldn't speak English. And so she got her ass kicked every day. And so it was pretty evident to her that she needed to assimilate and like try to not be other, right? Because we saw how our Black brothers and sisters were treated in all other groups as well. So she was trying to be like, oh, well, maybe, if I don't show my Spanish heritage, maybe it'll be better on me. And so I think for a long time, I didn't really grasp my own heritage. And I'm glad I've finally done that. But anyway, so after realizing that, Disney was great, it was a great learning opportunity, but again, they didn't have a lot of diversity. And I think I'm such a strong female that is not always acceptable in a lot of areas. And it really wasn't probably, my directness was probably an issue for some people. They were threatened by it or intimidated. And so there was a little bit of like, you're not fitting in the box. And no matter how hard I tried to fit in that box, my arms and legs were always kind of hanging out, is how I describe it. And so my husband and I actually started our own production company, and we met at Disney as well. And so he had directed and I had produced. And so we actually did our first live action film together, which was The Christmas Chronicles, starring Kurt Russell. Clay directed that. I was one of the producers, just the first one, not the second one. And from there, we just started to create our own, I shouldn't say create our own IP. We definitely have our own ideas, but we're getting books and scripts from people, and we're doing both animation and live action. So that's me. And then of course, Rise Up is a whole nother thing, because that was actually created by 3 amazing gentlemen, all artists and directors, Trent Corey, Bobby Pontius, and Frank Abney III. but I volunteered like at the very beginning. Like I think I was one of the first, and I was just so passionate, and I wanted to help them, and I helped them become a nonprofit. And then they asked me to be a founder because they could see that I was so dedicated, and you know, I have a particular skill set which complements them. And so that's how, you know, that's how I got involved with Rise Up, and I could talk about that forever. But
no, that's amazing, Monica. I love the journey, and I think it's so iconic. What stuck out to me the most was, you know, my feet were hanging out of the box. So you reshaped the box. You kind of reshaped it, and helping with Rise Up, and then reflecting in your experience and having it be kind of a motivating factor as you jumped from production to production and standing out and being determined. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'd love to jump over to Ellen. Ellen, you wear a few different hats. Can you tell us about your job at Titmouse Studio, and also touch on your work at Women in Animation?
Yes. Yeah, so indeed, I feel like I've always worn many different hats throughout my life. At the moment, I teach at the School of Visual Arts, where I'm helping students develop award-winning films, and I co-lead WIA, NYC. At this point, one of the largest chapters in the organization, NYC. And I am the one and only artistic recruiter at Titmouse for now. Hopefully we'll grow that. We'll grow that. But we have over 1,000 artists with locations in New York, LA, and Vancouver. And so kind of like beyond the usual, you know, finding talent outside of Titmouse and talking with students, I'm also constantly trying to match internal talent with their next project. Because, you know, obviously we want to keep our own artists continue to working, right? And if someone's ending on one show, they have all these different skill sets, they can do different styles. How do we match them to the next project? It's making sure that the right people are being promoted into leadership positions so we can continue to maintain a supportive and friendly environment for our artists. And if people have aspirations within Titmouse, I'm there to guide them through the process, give them advice on how they can achieve their goals. If I really believe in someone, like I will do my best. Well, yeah, I don't even have to really believe in somebody. I could just see like, I like to see potential. I will do my best to set them up for success because sometimes I know many of these people, fantastic, really skilled artists that just don't know how to market themselves. So that could mean I'll take a moment to tell a candidate, hey, change the order of portfolio. You should put this up at the top before I forward this to the producers, because they might not spend the time to dig for the thing they need to see, right? It could mean, when things like, I don't know if she's interested in leadership position. She's never said she wants to do directing. You know, if that comes up in a staffing meeting, I will go set up that meeting with that person. I'm going to get to know their goals, like see if they're a good fit, if they have the right ideas about what directing is like, and then forward those notes to the team and really champion for them as much as I can behind the scenes. Thankfully, Titmouse is genuinely interested in promoting diversity and has been really receptive to my suggestions. It really definitely takes the right company culture for these efforts to work, right? So yeah, I'm really glad to be at Titmouse and I hope I can make a difference.
That's amazing. Such amazing work. And we all got kind of really enthusiastic as you were describing it. So I'm excited to touch on it later as well. So Halcyon, you've been doing some really great work over at 9 Story as a writer on Karma's World. Can you talk about what exactly a head writer does?
Sure, absolutely. It's a lot of things, which is, I think, one of the most fun parts of the job. But at the end of the day, it really is leading the writing team and leading the kind of writing creative vision for a show. So Emerald, like you said, I have been working on a show for Netflix called Karma's World that is coming out soon. I was able to lead a really brilliant, truly brilliant team of writers to creating the episodes for that show, creating the arcs, creating all the characters. So, from the outset, it really is that I'm lucky to lead a really wonderful, brilliant team, but it is leading and sort of shaping the kind of the writing voice of the show, and thinking a lot about how that then will lead into the animation, lead into the music, lead into the sound, the acting, the post-production, everything like that. So where obviously other extremely brilliant and talented people come in and take the lead, but also, you know, with the hope that as a head writer, I can help kind of keep that vision in mind, and keep that idea of kind of where we started from the very beginning of the writing process as the first ones to touch the project all the way through the end. So what that means day to day is that it can look really different. A lot of the time we are brainstorming and figuring out what our next episodes are going to be. We're in a room together, or now in a Zoom together, kind of pitching a bunch of ideas, talking together. I think one of the best parts of working with the team I work with and working at 9 Story where I work is that we do have a fairly large in-house writing team. Every show is a bit different. So in some you'll have a smaller writing team and staff and a lot more freelancers. And in some shows you'll have like a full in-house staff and they don't use freelancers at all. We're in a bit of a hybrid model where we use freelancers, but we also have a kind of a robust inside team as well. And so we'll spend a lot of time pitching ideas to each other, thinking about jokes, helping one another with our scripts. So it's like, oh, I have a problem here. Can we all just talk this out a little bit? That's really great. And I think that I'm again lucky to work with a group of people who are extremely positive in those situations. We have a very uplifting and supportive environment. It's never that an idea is wrong. It's just like the next stop to the right idea. So I think that working in that environment and getting that experience in that writer's room capacity where you're not shooting down someone else's thing, you're not yucking their yum at all, but you're really uplifting, you're empowering, you're saying, yes, okay, great. How do we get there? What does that mean? How does that connect to this? And keep asking those like probing questions can be the way I think to the best possible stories. So once a story's launched, we jump right into writing. So we do obviously multiple drafts of every script at 9 Story. Some may know, but I will say that we have a really incredible research program within our company. So every episode of our shows are researched with actual kids, and we have an incredible team of brilliant researchers, a whole department within 9 Story that sort of takes all the data from talking to kids and really helps us understand, is the message getting across to them? Are we having the impact we want to make? Are the stories as meaningful as we want them to be? And that's a huge part of our process because at the end of the day, all that really matters is that the kids are getting something out of it and that they're loving it. It doesn't matter if it makes me laugh, it matters if it makes the kids watching laugh. So while of course, that can sometimes be brutal. Sometimes a 5-year-old will really wreck your weekend by telling you that they do not like what you have written. At the same time, it's the best possible information in the world because of course you would rather hear it at the outline or D1 stage than after it's already out in the world and people are watching it on Netflix. So it is a crucial part of our process. We think all the time about how kids are researching, through research, how kids are taking our content, what they're doing with it. And we also work with a number of really brilliant consultants as well who can help us with the content, and depending on the show and what our area of curriculum or impact is, we work with them as well. So the writing team kind of takes in that information and tries to figure out how to make it work with story. And then, you know, we work throughout the process. So we'll help edit scripts as it goes into animatic, as it goes into VO. You know, we'll keep touching the script and keep working on it throughout the process all the way to the end, which is a really fun thing that we're getting to see now with Karma's World, is like going from that very first kernel of an idea so long ago to now seeing the finished product is pretty awesome.
That is amazing. That is so amazing. I feel like when you're in a writer's seat, you're kind of growing a little bud, right? And seeing it through every step of the way. And I think that it's so cool, the research aspect of it, because as someone who previously worked in education, yeah, kids can be brutal. They can look you right in your face and say, you are not funny. You need to rethink that.
And they're also all little producers, which I love. So now we'll go and we'll talk to kids and we'll be like, I don't like her hair. I think you should think about changing this character. Like they really have like such a great mindset of kind of thinking about how to help, and they really want to help, which is amazing. Of course, they're also sweet and open-hearted. They're like, yes, let me tell you what we like and let me me tell you what I like. And it's the best feeling in the world. And especially obviously when you get to see kids laugh at a joke you've written, or you get to see their minds opening to a new idea that you've introduced in an episode. I mean, that's the best feeling in the world.
That's so amazing and refreshing, really, because the content is for them, as you mentioned. So seeing their live responses to it is refreshing, and in the same way, as we mentioned, hilarious, because if a 5-year-old goes up to you and says, I have some notes.
Yeah. There's no room for ego, because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about any of us. And I think that's one of my favorite things about working in kids TV.
Right. Wow. So from writer to co-founder of Rise Up Animation to recruiting talent, we have such an awesome pool of people who have arrived at their destination and do different things. So earlier we touched on how the pathway to those destinations isn't so transparent. For myself personally, Monica, I think you mentioned this, I didn't know people did this for a living until well after college. It does, especially in animation, seem like one of those things where you see credits roll across the screen, you're like, those people don't mean anything to me. I can't connect what they did on the show to what I actually watched. So whether you find out way later in life or find out early on, you can still arrive at the same destination, which I honestly think is so inspiring, right? Because every person is different. Not everybody is the same. Right. So Halcyon, I'd love to throw it to you. How did you find yourself to be where you are today? What did your journey look like?
Sure. Yeah, happy to talk about it. I will say that just like you two, I had no inclination early in my life that this is what I would be doing. I actually studied in college architecture. I still shake my head at it. I'm like, why? What? It was so hard, so many all-nighters, and then I did not pick up a drafting pencil again after that. But my path is winding, like you might imagine, and like a lot of people's are. I left college and moved to Chicago to work for a grassroots nonprofit on the West Side, and I had come with the understanding that, or the thought that I might be doing housing advocacy and work that was kind of within the purview of my education, like kind of working in urban planning and development, but soon found out that a lot of what I was going to end up doing at this nonprofit was working with kids and kind of running an after-school program, and it ended up being like one of the best and most wonderful experiences of my life. Like you said, Emerald, like education, and particularly that type of like informal education where I was not bound to like, oh, a certain curriculum or we have to read a certain book. It was kind of like, what should we do today? What would be fun? Like, let's put on a play, let's make this arts and craft, let's, like, and I think the kids were wonderful and they taught me so much through the process. And I really fell in love with working with kids and talking on their level. And at the same time, I was in Chicago kind of became interested in comedy. There's obviously the like improv and sketch scene there with Second City and IO, and I became part of those circles and took a lot of classes there as well. And in that time met a writer named Michael McCarthy, who was a brilliant writer who wrote not only for SNL, but also for Sesame Street. And so I had many conversations with him, and he was the first one to be like, you like work with kids and you like writing comedy, you can like do both those things at once, right? And I was like, I didn't realize that's incredible. Like he truly blew my mind. And he was like, why don't you like write some Sesame Street sketches and see how it feels? So he was the first one to put that in my brain. And after a bunch of time getting really excited about that, I decided to move to New York from Chicago to try to do it full time. I was very lucky that I had saved. Chicago is a fairly cheap city, or was a fairly cheap city to live in at that time. And I was able to save up some money and move to New York without a job, which was really terrifying. But at the same time, I think it was necessary for me to like get my feet down here and start making the contacts I needed to make to find work. I ended up working for a year as a PA, free jobs on Craigslist for commercials and pilots and PSA campaigns, and running to Dick's Sporting Goods at midnight to buy waiters so that movie stars could go into the East River, like, all these insane stories that you hear about, that life of kind of like just hustling and trying to make it work, which were great. I mean, really, really amazing experiences where I learned a lot about TV and production. And then I got my first job in kids TV at Nickelodeon, writing for a show called Blaze and the Monster Machines. I started there as a script coordinator, supporting the writing department, and then eventually became a staff writer and wrote there for 3 years. But then I left kids TV, I should say, for a beat, and worked at Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. I was lucky enough, because I was still working in the comedy scene, to get an opportunity to become a director and producer there, which was brilliant. It was an amazing experience, and it was really, really fun to write for adults. But I will say that I really missed writing for kids, and I missed being the first ones to kind of share impactful and powerful ideas with an audience. And I was very excited when I had the opportunity to move back into kids TV at 9 Story with the show Karma's World that's coming out. So all that said, I will say that my path is clearly very winding, all over the place, but something that I think I learned and will share, that I think was always told to me as like sort of this myth of the industry, was that like you had to make a choice about like what you were going to do in this world, and that's what you had to do for the rest of your career. Like a lot of people told me early on, like, if you want to write for preschool, that means that's all you should do, that's all you're going to be able to do for the rest of your career. Don't ever think that you can move to something else. So if you really want to do this, you know, if you don't want to do this forever, then don't do it. And I found out that that's just not true. And I think we live in a time now where media is so flexible and malleable and more fluid than ever. And people I know who are comedy writers or stand-up comedians are coming to me to say like, hey, can I pitch you my kids show? And like, I mean, I think that we're living in a new age of media where those boundaries don't matter as much anymore. And good writing is good writing, no matter who's doing it or who you are. So I would just say, if anyone out there has heard that myth before or has let it discourage them, that it is simply not the case, at least from my experience.
Yeah, the only thing you need to do something new is just do the thing. Yeah. It's like, you want to direct a film, you know, like just give us the example of you executing that, and then you're set.
Right.
Absolutely. And if it's good, all the better, right? I mean, really, because at the end of the day, you have to keep practicing too, I think, sometimes with stuff. You can't just give up. So, I mean, that's what we tell our mentees all the time. So I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree more that it's all about, it doesn't necessarily matter how you get here or what you've been doing. If you want to pivot to both of all three of your points, it's about just doing it, make the commitment, and you have to work hard though.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree. And Monica, now that, as you mentioned, you oversee people who are looking to get into the industry. So it's the perfect time to ask, you know, as I mentioned, I'm sure you see folks who come through Rise Up having, maybe they're like all three of us, you, me and Halcyon, where we were like, I don't know, we're going to figure it out later. And they're coming to you saying, I just figured out I want to do this. Or maybe they're on the other side of the coin and they're like, I knew I wanted to do this since I was 3 years old. I was in a research group and I saw this amazing animation and now I want to do it.
I met this writer and it was amazing, right?
Right, exactly. And I met this amazing writer. So does it matter either way? And what piece of advice do you emphasize to these folks who aspire to work in animation?
I don't think it matters either way. I think at the end of the day, you know, when I was at Disney, I really wanted to go out and do outreach because I realized that if I didn't know that you could have a career in animation, the industry, there might be a lot of other people that didn't either. And there was a lot of closing of art programs in schools, which really made me feel, even more like this angst of like, I've got to get out there. And unfortunately, you know, they didn't send me out, maybe because they were afraid I was going to be too real. I don't know. But with Rise Up, that is one of the big tentpoles that we're going to be doing, is doing outreach and going into schools. Because I think a lot of studios and a lot of places will go into colleges and speak, even high school, but we need to be going in earlier. Because to your point, Emerald, there's the people who didn't know, and then there's those who have did art and drawing, and then they get to a certain age and maybe they get shamed by friends, like it ain't cool anymore. And then, or their parents, because, you know, if you're not affluent, which I totally understand. I had, you know, I wasn't in poverty, but we were definitely, you know, we didn't have money. So you didn't just go to school if you were just going to drop out. Like I went to a junior college first. Like you didn't just go to a 4-year if you didn't know what you wanted to be. So, so I do think that there is some parents, and I know it because I'm now dealing with all these wonderful mentees and they're from all over the world. So even though Rise Up Animation is a, you know, US based nonprofit, because we're doing these on Zoom, we can Zoom with anyone anywhere. So Bobby Pontius and the guys always like to say, we're bringing Hollywood to them. And what we find is a lot of them, their parents have told them, yeah, no, you won't be able to make money at that. Do engineering, or do architecture, or this or that, and or illustration. And so they're kind of on the periphery, or they've done something completely different. And now they're like, they've decided they're not happy, and they've turned it around. And so they come to us. And so my best advice is just go for it. Like literally decide what your love, what is that discipline? Because a lot of people will come and say, well, I love story and animation, or I love story and concept art. And I'm like, that's great. Let's look at your portfolio, which is, you know, usually a website, and it should be. And we look at it and we're like, I'll see what they're best at. And I'll say to them, you know, I understand you want to do animating, and I'm looking at your animation and I see why you want to do it, but there's some room there for growth. And you actually have some great VisDev artwork. So why not apply there? Let's make that the focus. And so I love that Ellen was talking about portfolios and how things can be hidden. That's a huge piece about what we talk about. It isn't just the, yes, you can totally go for it. Don't worry about your age even, especially with the arts. Your art speaks for yourself. It's one place that doesn't have as much ageism as some other industries, you know? We're not in front of the camera, so I don't have to luckily worry about that. But yeah, so I think I just tell them to try to get into a job opportunity by putting their best foot forward. So, you know, if you're really great at VisDev, go for that first, get in, get your job, and then you can start working with people that are there on your animation, and you're gonna have some of the best mentoring from the people there. And then you can move into that. But, you know, a lot of studios aren't looking for someone who can do everything unless you're a small place. But somewhere big like Pixar and Disney and Illumination and, you know, these big studios, Sony, they definitely, it is a production. Production was based after, like, right, the creation of Cars. So everything is, you know, they don't mean to silo it, but you definitely have to have this is my first love. It's like going to college. You choose a major and then a minor, but you can't study everything at the same time. So I try to tell them to think about what that is, go for that first. You got to have your your portfolio's got to be top notch. It's got to be very clear what you want to do. So if you want to do VisDev, have that be first. Don't have it be something else, because then I, as a producer, I'm trying to, like Ellen said, I don't even know where to look.
Yeah,
It's like you have to know how to place yourself, and then I can know how to help you place you in that position. But if you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows.
Totally.
Sorry to jump in, but that's such a great point. I see that on the writing side too. I often talk with a lot of folks who I think are trying to tell me what I want to hear about, like, what they want to do. Like, they're often like, oh, well, I can write anything. Tell me what you want me to write and I'll write it, which is true. And I think that, honestly, I'm sure they could write anything. But what I get excited by is hearing what their passion is. And Ellen, to your point earlier, it's so great to be able to connect someone with a project that is perfect for them. And that really feels like they're going to be able to elevate it. They're going to bring something to it that no one else could. And I think that that's a wonderful part of our industry, is that there's enough going on right now, and that the types of work are so varied that, like, it's great to hear what you want to do. So I would encourage folks, if you are in an interview, if you're at an informational meeting, be really honest about what you're excited about, what kind of stories you want to tell, what kind of visuals you want to be making, what kind of part of the industry you want to be in, because while it might not be what you get right now or what you're doing right now, it will stick in people's brains, and good managers will find ways for you to be a part of that. Even if it's not your day-to-day at the beginning, they'll find a way to get you in that room so you can learn and grow.
Absolutely. We tell that to the mentees. We say, you know, they're like, well, what style? It's like, your style is your own. It's great if you have the versatility. So as a writer, to be able to write anything, great. As an artist, if you can draw all different styles, from very, very cartoony, squash and stretch, all the way to much more realistic, great. But what is your style? What's your special sauce? What's that spice you add? Let me see that, you know? It's interesting. And so the other thing, and somebody was putting this in the comments, and it's true, that where we are today with COVID, which of course was horrific, but it did allow people to see that you could do animation from anywhere, in your homes, from anywhere around the world. So our industry has actually flourished, I think. And also there's so much online. So while we can't guarantee jobs to our mentees, that is not the function of our nonprofit. It's about giving them FaceTime with someone who will give them really honest, true feedback and help them curate the portfolio that they want to curate to the best, so that they're prepared with all the tools, online schools. I mean, so many people we talk to all around the world, there aren't art schools near them. So it's all about the online school. and they can't afford brick and mortar. I mean, Cal Arts is amazing, but who can really afford to go there, or Ringling or some of these? Some people can, obviously, but a lot of us, minorities, or I would say diverse individuals, people of color, we don't necessarily have that. So we have to find other ways. So we give them tools. We do, you know, our panels and stuff, and we just try to prepare them so that when they're ready to walk into whatever room that is, they're ready.
Right. Absolutely. What I'm hearing from everyone is that zeroing in on a passion is totally worth it, because when you do get to that point, you can really emphasize it, call attention to it, and show the reason why you're passionate is the reason why you should have the seat, why you should be at that destination. And that's kind of what distinguishes in a way, which is fantastic. So on the note of getting to that career destination you've always dreamt of, the conversation that is inevitable is how that road, and Monica, I feel like you were touching on this earlier, that road can either be a smooth pavement, or likely if you're a person of color, it looks a little bit different. And I'd like to take a moment, though, to recognize that there's beauty in that journey, and there's beauty in that difference of journey, right? But luckily, we have folks here today who are actively seeking to level the playing field. Ellen, as you look to the folks that you're recruiting, Monica with Rise Up, Halcyon with facilitating an awesome and inspiring writing room. And these women are doing amazing work to make sure that everyone has the freedom to flourish. So Monica, Rise Up, as you mentioned, has some fantastic mentorship work. So and I'd like to take a moment, if folks have questions, please pop them in the Q&A box. And now we can get into the exciting portion where we can potentially give some action points. So Monica, with Rise Up, can you talk about exactly what the organization offers? You touched on it a little bit before, but how folks can look to get into the organization, and how one would go about signing up and taking advantage of all the resources and programs.
Absolutely. First, just let me say though, that we're not even a year old yet. So I just want everybody to realize we're really new. Our year anniversary is June 5th, January. So it's coming up pretty soon. So that's pretty exciting. And we just got our website going, and it's live, riseupanimation.org, which is very exciting. So what we offer, our core business, is a one-on-one feedback session with an industry professional, with a mentee that is over 18 and identifies as BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, or person of color. Now, you can be mixed race. We're not, we're not trying to say you can't have any European American or what some people call white blood, we're just simply saying that you can't solely identify as white. This program is not for you if that's where you're at, because there's lots of other opportunities for you then if you fall into that category. Basically every month, at the end of the month, we open up our signups, what we call our live sign-up sheet. And right now we're doing that through Instagram still. So if you go on our Instagram for Rise Up Animation, you'll see the dates that we open. And I think we're probably open right now. So you can go on, you fill out a form. You definitely have to say, you have to say your ethnicity, because that's a big piece of if we're going to be able to help you or not. And then a mentor will contact you, and they do a 30-minute to 1 hour session. The beauty of our program is that our mentors have the flexibility, because they are all industry professionals. So they're all working and busy. So they can decide if they're going to have the bandwidth to mentor that person ongoing. And if they can't, it's fine, because the mentee can sign up again 60 days later and get another person. And so what I love about it is you're getting different POVs on your work or on your resume or what have you from different industry professionals. And I feel like that's one of the beautiful things we do. And then we also do panels. We do collaborations with other studios. We did a Nickelodeon, a Nick Week. It was Rise Up Animation and Nick U, and they did an entire week for just our mentees. They did classes in the morning and then drawing in the afternoon. It was phenomenal. We're going to be doing that. We did a Disney week where Sony had someone come and do a workshop, Mike Rianda. It was amazing. So we're going to be doing more of that stuff as well. And then we're really, really hoping that in the future, and we're talking a few years from now, that we'll be able to, because right now we're all volunteers. So the founders pretty much pay for everything that has a cost, like Zoom or what have you. So we're hoping we'll get donations, and then we can carve out money and do scholarships for our community. And we're hoping that those scholarships will be so that they can use them for online schooling, so they don't have to go to brick and mortar. Because, you know, you talk to someone in Indonesia and there's no school near them. So anyway, so that's the bulk of what we do. I mean, we don't guarantee jobs, but I will say that the mentors have the ability, if they've been working with someone who is really ready for an internship or a job, we do capture that information and we do put it in front of recruiters from all the major studios. So, and little ones too. I mean, anyone who we have that relationship with, and the mentees know that it's no guarantee, but it's something for them to work really hard towards. And we've actually got, I'm excited to say, I did the arithmetic, and 1%, doesn't seem like a lot, but we have about 2,500 individual mentees in the last year, and 1% of them, or more than 1%, about 30 have actually gotten jobs. One of them's on here right now, Kylie. So.
That's fantastic. That is such important work, Monica, from the mentorship aspect to, oh, it's important.
They're like I mean, you know, I've always hired that way myself when I was at Disney all the years, but to see it happening, like, they're just like, I'm just so proud. So happy.
It's what you're passionate about, right? That's the
like the icing on the cake, you know, because you can't guarantee a job, but if they get one, you're like, oh my God.
Right, absolutely. And that accessibility aspect is so important because, as you mentioned, not everyone has the tools, resources to bridge the gap between want, desire, aspiration to really setting the destination point and getting there. And especially people of color, underrepresented communities, they don't have access to that. So Rise Up is such a fantastic tool for that. And congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll just say, if you're under 18, you can ask your guardian, your mom or your dad or your parent, whoever your parent is, they can sign up as themselves and bring you with them to a session. And that's how we handle that, because a lot of people are like, well, that kind of blows, you're not open for people, but you know, it's a one-on-one and we can't be doing that with a minor. So anyway, so I'm doing one of those next week. I'm very excited to meet this woman and her daughter.
Oh, that's fantastic. So let's just say someone isn't quite ready to take action. Maybe they're not quite ready to take that next step. Ellen, I'd love to spotlight the work that you're doing at Women in Animation. So say someone just wanted to learn more, just wanted to get information about how the industry works, what they could do, etc. Women in Animation is a fantastic resource. Can you talk a little bit about what you do there?
Yeah, so one thing is, like, WIA is not just for beginners. We do a lot of programming for, you know, mid-level to senior people as well. But one great thing that happened because of the pandemic is all the chapters and all the events that they offer suddenly became virtual. So anyone can access them, right? Which is fantastic. Chapters kind of have different focuses based off of who's the leadership and who's providing, you know, the events and stuff. So for example, Bay Area has leadership that's producers at Pixar or ILM. So a lot of their stuff is like focused on animation production. Another company has a lot of the big VFX companies in their leadership. So they're offering a look like, what is it like to work on Star Wars and stuff like that, you know? For New York City, because of what our industry is, we are generally commercial advertising, but because I am there and I am a very curious person, I've kind of like created events that are just not like just anything I'm interested in, right? Like I grew up very similar to you guys, single parent household, mom was working all the time. So like, there's no adult guidance. So like, I'm always like, can somebody tell me the answer? And at some point you're like, all right, I'm going to have to find the answer. I'm going to have to do the taxes, right? Like, so all of my presentation work is kind of like that. Like, what's something that I wish somebody had told me? What is stuff I'm personally interested in so that I can go research, interview the person, create a panel, and share that information with everybody. So like I'll do a freelance 101 presentation every year, which is practical advice about how to start reaching out to studios, what rates should you guys be charging, what are contracts, stuff like that. I do leadership spotlight segments, which is me focusing on finding the answer to what makes a good art director, not beyond the technical skill, what's the soft skills you need, you know? And yeah, we did like a career fair recently with studios like DreamWorks, Nickelodeon, Titmouse. We paired like 100 portfolio reviews, maybe more, which is super, super valuable. And yeah, these organizations are great. And I know that we're making a difference and we're building community. But as Monica said, like paying a membership fee or signing up for a class, it does not equal job. And no matter how many classes or memberships you buy, you have to, in the end, put in the legwork to develop your craft. And that can be done anywhere because YouTube is free, right? Like so many people are offering free lessons, free skill classes. Like you can do that as long as you have an internet connection and some kind of like, I don't know, an iPad, a piece of paper, right? So develop your craft on your own and then look to these organizations to open doors. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm just noting time and I'd love to now transition, if we could, into questions. But before I do, any last thoughts? Halcyon, Ellen, Monica?
I do want to just really quickly touch on my path, which is, I think, a little bit different than the other ladies, which is like, for anyone out there that loves to research your restaurants before you eat at them or whatever, like,
Yes.
this is me as a person, and this is how I tackle everything else in my life, which came to colleges, right? Like I researched what the portfolios were of all the graduating students to check their quality. I researched the professors that are teaching at these schools to say what companies these people are working at, right? So like, that's how I came to settling on the school that I chose. And that was like how I was like, oh, I got an internship at college because there were people interning at Pixar in the student, and that's like the connection, right? So research is super, super important. And coming out of school too, I like wanted to research what different environments are, from the big Pixar studios to the little studios, commercial studios with 5 people or whatever. So I freelanced doing that research phase, right? And my job in recruiting is, again, research, because I'm coming from the commercial world, going into episodic world. I have no experience in episodic. I don't know what all the different, responsibilities are. So here I am in the recruiter seat. I can see it all. I can know what all the positions are. I know what people are looking for and like what challenges am I facing, so that next time, if I'm reaching out to a recruiter, I know what to do. So research is super important. And if you feel like you have this big, big goal, it's achievable. Just break it down into these little steps and do that research, right? And if you don't know how, find out exactly what you don't know how to do, and then do the research for it. All right, that's it.
That's great advice. Really. Great advice.
Absolutely. Awesome. So I'd love to spotlight Jada Henry, who has a question. For upcoming film and TV writers, what is the most efficient way to present your writing portfolio to industry professionals? Halcyon, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I think I'm thinking of how to answer, particularly for the kids media space. So hopefully that's okay, because it sounds like you may write across different genres, which is awesome. I would say that having work you can share that does 2 things I think is important. One, that shows your sensibility and your voice. Again, like what your style is, how you like to write, what's important to you, I think is great. And also showing, because so many jobs in our industry are about saying, you have to be a talented writer, but you have to write within this structure, right? There's the show that you're writing for, especially if you're a freelancer, if you're working staff on a show, it's like, it's amazing that you have your own sensibility, and that will come in as you create your own show, in that stage of your career. But in the meantime, you also need to show, oh, I can write an awesome Vampirina spec. I can write for a well-known show, and you can see how my voice fits into that voice and how I'm bringing my special sauce to that world that already exists. So I would say that when you're sharing your work with a production company, with a studio, it's great to kind of give them a little bit of both. So that if you can send if it's possible to send like a spec for a well-known show, a show that you love, a show that you admire and I think would like to write for, I think that's great, while also potentially sending something that's original, that's from your point of view, that kind of shows kind of what you, how you see the world, what kind of stories are important to you, what you care about. I think that's awesome as well. The rule of thumb, which I do think is a good one, especially in kids TV, is to not send the spec for the show you are trying to get hired for. I think that the real reason for that is that even if you've watched every single episode of the show, it's very likely that there are little things and rules and tweaks to the show that you're just not going to know, that someone reading for it will know very well. And it's very hard for them to separate themselves from kind of all those weird little nitpicky rules they may have. And so writing for a completely different show that's for a different company, is somewhere else in the world, is always smart, because it means that you're going to have that bit more of an unbiased eye on your writing. And on top of that, I would just say that having those things ready for when the opportunity arrives to you, I think is very good. I often talk with folks, and it makes sense because it's a lot of work. It's also a lot of unpaid work, and it's unfortunate that this is the way our industry sort of runs, that you have to do this work to show who you are and your portfolio before you can get those opportunities. But I would say that if it's something you can start working on now, start crafting now, it's great to be able to be in a meeting, be in an informational when those come along, and be like, yes, let me send you my samples, and you have them ready to attach right after the meeting. I do talk to a lot of folks who are like, oh, I've still got to put that together, I'm working on it, and that's totally fine. That's great that they're working on it, but it does have a different impact, and it means that you can jump onto opportunities, because at least in my experience, they often kind of like surprise you. It's very rarely something where it's like, oh, I know a few months in advance that an opportunity may arise. It's something where you might get an email from a connection all of a sudden of like, hey, can you send me your samples because I want to share them with someone ASAP. So being prepared when that question or request comes your way is also, I think, really good advice.
Absolutely. And just one follow-up question, Halcyon. Say someone in the audience right now is at that stage, they're ready, they have spec scripts lined up. How do they then get it to the person? Who do they go to? How would they go about getting their samples in front of someone?
Yeah, I think there's many ways to do it. I think that there's obviously places like LinkedIn through which you can connect with folks. I found that, like, for example, I am not great at LinkedIn. I don't look at it very often. So I think that that's not always the best way to reach me in particular, but I do think other people are very active on it, which is great. So that can be a way. I also think being at in events like this and meeting other people with whom that you can connect, and basically just like finding those points of contact. A piece of advice I also like to give, which is a bit of a tangent, is that I think often I talk to folks who feel like networking means finding and meeting people who like are further along in their career than you, and talking with them and getting advice from them about their career, which is great. I think that's a great part of networking. I think that's really helpful, but it's just as much about meeting and connecting with your peers, people who are at the same stage in the process of their career as you are, because those are the people that are going to probably end up being the people you work with, the people where you hire them one show, they hire you the next show. I think making and forging those connections sort of laterally, and looking for folks who are passionate about what you want to do, the people who are in this this webinar right now, and working with them, sharing scripts, giving each other notes, like all of that is really important. And that's what I did when I first started. And those are folks that I still email with all the time. I go to them with questions about my own stuff and say, hey, can you help me break this story? And we work with each other. We always try to throw each other scripts and jobs and stuff like that, because we know each other really well and we know each other's sensibilities.
You just made me think of something, so I want to yes and. So the mentees for Rise Up Animation created their own Discord.
That's awesome.
And it is for that community. So we don't have anything to do with it. I mean, I go on it because I'll put job postings for them and say, hey, they're hiring here, you know, apply. But it has been moderated by these amazing individuals, you know, that are mentees, and
Cool.
and they have like they critique each other's work. They have a venting mental health area, housing, all kinds of stuff. So, well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for mentioning that about the fact that you should be looking at your peers, because that's who you're going to be rising up with. So yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. That's such a cool resource.
Pretty cool.
So we have time for one more question, and I apologize that we did not get to all of them, but this can be one that everyone can answer, hopefully. It's a very sweet question. How do you keep your passion alive?
Such a great question.
It's a great question, and it's a hard one, because like when I think about myself, you know, when I started at Disney, I had the biggest Disney ears. You know, you're just like this little, I was a kid, you know, and then you get to see the business and things that happen, and you know, you still have the ears, but they're just maybe more normal side, much like Mickey Mouse's ears, you know. And I think it's natural for you to get a little disillusioned, or sometimes you have a bad day, or, you know. So what I always say, like, I'll pitch stuff, and I actually we had a script that was out with Regina King's company and Royal Ties, and they had it, and we thought it might happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. So I just got that news today, and, you know, I'm still doing all right, but, you know, I'm going to let myself mourn that for like a day, and then that's it. Pick yourself up. Tomorrow is a new day. Like, you don't stay there. You let yourself feel it, and you don't stay there. And I think my passion for me is just seeing everybody else's work. You know, just right now, I'm so inspired listening to you ladies talk and how you see things. And I think it's all about the next generation. So I think if you don't have a huge ego and you do care about people, I think it's easier to keep your passion, frankly.
For me, I just like take in a lot of content, I think. I read a ton of books. Audible makes it super, super easy, audiobooks, which you can get for free with a library card, actually. Yeah, and watch a lot of movies. Like, if you're interested in animation, you have to be taking in a lot of content, because in the end, like, what your style is, like who you are as a creator, is drawing from stuff you love and your influences, right? It's like, I like film noir, anime, and, you know, whatever, right? And then my creations is a mishmash of that. So if you're not taking in good stuff, I don't think you can put out good stuff either. I don't know, maybe some people can, but I think you have to, you know, just be out there and take in a lot of different content.
Get a lay of the land, right? Know your landscape.
I feel like both of what you've said is exactly what I would say too. So I won't belabor it, but I will say that, like, I watch so much TV. It's the best part of my job, because I get to be like, I'm doing this for work. I watch a ton of TV. I watch a ton of preschool TV. I watch kids TV, and I love it. I have to give a shout out to a show called Infinity Train, which is incredible. It's an amazing show. I highly recommend it. And it's one right now that's really inspiring me and making me feel like it's amazing what kids TV can do. I think that's one thing I do. And then I also think that a lot about the why behind what we do. Unlike a lot of media out there, to be honest, like, there's a really clear why of what we're doing and who we're doing it for. And it's easy to picture who our audience is out there sitting on the other side of the screen. And I think when I have rough days or bad days and I struggle, I think about, like, the messages behind what we're trying to do and how important it is, and how a lot of the stories I'm getting to tell now are stories I wish were on TV when I was a kid that I could have learned a little younger. And I think that keeps motivating me. It gives me a lot of energy.
Agreed. I think looking at not just animation, but filmmaking, because it's all filmmaking, even if it's TV shows or not, is so important. I know that I speak with a lot of aspiring animation folks, and they've never even read The Illusion of Life. And I say, well, if you were going to seminary school to become, you know, a priest or something, wouldn't you read the Bible? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's the animation Bible. So I feel like start with that. Watch as much as you can. You know, when I ask somebody what their favorite animation is, a movie or what have you, or a TV show, and they don't have one, that makes you go, So it isn't, you have to look at the people before you, and you need to look at what they've done. And I think that's one of the things, I think that's what I really admire about Clay, is that he knows kind of what everybody's doing. He's, you know, I probably watch more mainstream TV than he has the time to do, but it doesn't matter. You still need to be connected. And I think that's what keeps you current as well.
Absolutely. So I would love to, before we say goodbye, do a nice call to action to everyone who is kind of filling the chats. And again, apologies, we didn't get to everyone's question, but we dropped a lot of resources that I see are linked in the chat. Another one, as I believe Halcyon mentioned, and Monica, I feel like you were cheering in the back, is LinkedIn. It's a helpful resource to connect with folks, ask the questions that maybe you didn't get the opportunity to ask today. And on that note, I'd love to thank this was a wonderful panel of women who are blazing a very, very, very nice path in animation. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. And thank you so much to NYICFF for carving out this space that's so necessary to talk roadmaps, to talk accessibility. I hope our conversation today was enlightening and giving a warm goodbye and good night to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.